Well, hello there and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to be taking a look at my absolute favorite Strat of all time, which is saying something because as many of you guys know, I've got way too many guitars and many Strats. But my absolute number one favorite Stratocaster ever produced is this guy right here. This lovely beast. Anyhow, I'm going to give you kind of an overview of this particular guitar, why I really like it, why it's my favorite Strat, just some of the features on it, and just my general impressions on the guitar. If you're looking for things like tones and stuff, I'll leave some stuff at the back of this video, but I'm probably not going to play too much, as there are already like a million wicked good videos of these guitars in action with these pickups on full showcase. These are original, by the way. So yeah, go to the back if you're looking for tones. So what exactly is this thing? This particular instrument here, it is from the 80s, it is Japanese made, it is a Fender, and it is a wicked guitar. Anyway, this era of Fender, these 80s Japanese Fenders, this is my absolute favorite era of Fender ever. I love these guitars, I love the feel of them, I love the way they play. Just absolutely spectacular instruments. I should probably kind of give you some background information on this and why, you know, from the 80s there are so many Japanese Fenders. So let's rewind the clock a little to the early 80s. Alright, so let's go way back to 1983, 1984-ish. Basically, what happened was, we all know that, you know, in the 60s, CBS purchased Fender guitars from Leo Fender. Following that, 83, 84, that organization decided to sell Fender guitars once again, so they popped up on the market, and the current owners of Fender, the ones we all know and love that make the current range of Fenders that have been around and have been doing this since the 80s, purchased them. But what happened was, when that company sold it to the current owners, basically they just sold Fender, like the brand, the licensing, all that stuff. They didn't sell them the factories in the US. And that left them in the precarious predicament of needing to produce guitars, but not having a facility. So that's how we end up with all of these amazing 80s Japanese Fenders, basically filling the need of relatively high-end Fender manufactured instruments, except they were being done overseas. There was some manufacturing happening still in the US, but it was not at the scale that we see today. So that's part of the reason why you see such an influx, and it's kind of rare to see a lot of USA produced Fenders from this era. They are out there, they're very valuable, but for the most part, when you look at, you know, mid 80s, you're going to be looking at Fujigen Japanese produced Fender instruments. Okay, now that's out of the way, let's talk about this particular guitar. Alright, so this one obviously is a Fender Contemporary Stratocaster. I figure this one is probably an 85, maybe an 86. And it's a funny story behind these. I always really wanted one of these way back, maybe in like 2015 or so. I was in a local consignment store. And anyway, as I'm in this consignment store looking around, I came across essentially this guitar, but in white on a hanger. So I picked it up, sat down. Immediately the neck felt amazing. I played around with it. It felt wonderful. But I was leaving on a trip the following day, so I didn't want to buy it then and there. I figured, you know what, I'll go on my trip, I'll come back, and it'll still be here probably, and I'll buy it, and that'll be fate and destiny. Anyway, it was not destiny, it was not fate. I got back, the guitar was sold. And I'm really kicking myself because here's the wild piece. This was 2015. These weren't worth very much in 2015. In fact, they weren't really worth too much until quite recently. Suddenly people have decided these are kind of vintage, they really enjoy them, and the market value on these has really started to skyrocket. But when I was looking at that one back in 2015, I think it was listed in this consignment shop at 450 Canadian dollars. Yeah, I know, and I didn't buy it like an idiot. Anyway, I definitely paid considerably more than that for this one, but still got them before the prices got out of hand. I mean, right now, I'm seeing these anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 in excellent condition on the used market. Reverb pricing, I've even seen some higher than that, which is kind of crazy, but that's Reverb. Yeah, anyway, that's kind of the backstory of why I really wanted one of these. But anyway, yeah, this one here is mine. As you can see, it's got all sorts of just dings and dents and scratches and scrapes all over it from, you know, being played hard for the last 35 some odd years or more. Oh yeah, check that out. Yeah, you can see the heel plate here. Somebody had really sweaty hands, kind of acidic. This actually made identifying this particular model really challenging. Anyway, I was able to pick out the serial number. I don't think you're going to pick it up on the camera here, but buried under all this sweat and corrosion, the serial number of this particular guitar is A038169, which is part of the reason why I think this is probably 85, 86. Most of the Contemporary started with an E, but around 86-ish, that's when you started seeing, you know, letter designations like A, B, C, D, E, F. Not so much on the Contemporary line, more so on just the other Fenders that were coming out of Japan at the time. But this one, however, does have an A stamped plate, which is interesting. It was more common for the non-contemporary line of Fenders to have the letters that weren't an E in front of them. For the most part, Fender Contemporaries, it seems the vast majority of them, have an E in front of their serial number, which is probably why a lot of people seem to call these the E series of guitar. There never was actually a Fender E series, anything called E series, but just people find a lot of these with E serial numbers, so they've just started calling them the E series. But that's not quite the right name. What I can tell you, aside from the serial numbers, is that these were produced by the Fujigen factory in Japan. If I'm not mistaken, Fujigen does still make some guitars for Fender. Yeah, the quality, craftsmanship, excellent on this instrument. Really, really nice. I mean, even after all these years, this is a fantastic instrument. Basically, what I can tell you about this, though, from this particular configuration, is that this particular model designation is the 27-4200. It's a beautiful name for a guitar. Anyway, all the contemporaries have these bizarre designation numbers attached to them. You know, there was ones you could get with just a single humbucker. There were ones you could get that would be 3 singles. There were, you know, 2 doubles with a coil split. There was even a Fender Contemporary Telecaster. I happen to own one. There were Fender Contemporaries that came with Kahler bridges, all sorts of stuff. So that's probably why they had the goofy number designations. Yeah, it was a pretty big and encompassing range. As far as the body itself goes, I mean, this is pretty much just like your regular Fender Strat. One thing I will say, and I've noticed this about a lot of the stuff out of Japan, is the arm cut here. I find it's kind of further back on the instrument than you find on things out of like the Mexican plant or American Fenders. I find this is more on a slant and a bit more forgiving. I quite like it. Not like this really makes a difference or impedes my playing, but just one of those things when you have a Japanese guitar that I find with Fender especially is a little bit different than the other ones as far as the body shape. Nothing crazy. It might just be this series, but I have another one that was produced at Fujigen as well that has the cut kind of a little bit further back than my Mexican and my USA Fenders, which is different. I don't mind it, but something to make note of. Of course, we've got, you know, this wonderful cut here, which you find on any Stratocaster you've ever played. As far as the heel goes, we don't have this kind of offset or on a slant cut for better accessibility, which is probably why one of the previous owners with the sweaty hands obviously like to play up high and, yeah, corrode that for me. But one thing about the Contemporary series, especially these ones that I do like, though, is they went and they moved the jack down here on the end instead of up here on the body. I find this is a nice, sleek look. I quite enjoy it. I should probably talk about this color. When these started out, you see these green ones up for sale all the time, but when these initially were sold, they were actually silver. It was, I think it was called pewter, something pewter. Anyway, that color over time starts to oxidize. As it oxidizes, it turns this really kind of neat metallic green, which is just freaking stunning. I mean, look at this thing, right? Is that not beautiful? Of course it is. Oh, and I should probably also mention that the wood used, I think, on all of the Contemporaries was basswood or basswood. So pretty common type of wood. You still find it in guitars all over the place. But I must say, it's holding up pretty well. The electronics. So this model, of course, is the, obviously, if I have to tell you this, the Hum Hum model. We're looking at just the 3-way selector switch. You know, neck, middle, bridge, the usual. Volume control, tone control. Nothing weird, nothing fancy. One thing I will point out, though, is, I don't know if you can see these little knobs here, these little F knobs. These are hard to find, so if you find a guitar with these on them, that's a good sign. Keep them, don't change them, don't lose them, because they are tricky to track down and they are bloody expensive. I am missing them on my other Contemporary and I wanted to buy a set. I've only found one on eBay so far and the guy wants like $120 for them, so I'm just gonna live without them, but seriously, these are plastic knobs. $120, no. Anyway, back to the pickups. So, these, a lot of people keep telling me that these are Schaller made pickups, and I just want to set the record straight. As far as I know, these were not made by Schaller. They were made by Fujigen in the Fujigen factory, and they use Alnico magnets. To me, these sound really good. These are stock. I have zero intention to change them. They sound great to my ears, but yeah, they are not, again, not Schaller. I think part of the misconception comes from the bridge, which we should also talk about. I love this bridge, but the bridge is made by Schaller. It was made in Germany. This is the Fender System 1 bridge. Now, on these Contemporaries, you can get the System 1, the System 2, the System 3. They're all made by Schaller. They're all really great bridges. I've only played this one in particular, so it's the only one I can really speak to. This is, of course, the Fender System 1. It's a single locking bridge, so we've got this goofy lock nut up here behind the nut. This is actually fine. I don't find I have any tuning issues with this. It's pretty stable, but I do lubricate this nut with, you know, graphite just to keep everything moving. These used to be a real pain to find parts for, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, this is a single locking trem. So essentially, you have to feed the strings in through the bottom like you would on a regular Strat. It's a bit tricky to actually line them up and get them to go in just right, but it does work. But as you can see here, the strings come up and over these little roller saddles, which are really nice. So these kind of move as you get on the bar. And if you know your fine tuning is done back here like it would be on a Floyd Rose. I will mention that the spacing here on the studs is actually a little bit larger than a Floyd Rose. So it used to be you'd find guys dialing these and then re-drilling and putting Floyds on, because when you lost parts for these back in the day, there was just no way to get them unless you found another wrecked Contemporary that you could steal them from. Luckily these days you're finding places like whammyparts.com finally stocking and building parts for these bridges so that they can be serviced. This has been a godsend because I recently had to find a few parts for my other Contemporary, the Telly. And yeah, no, thankfully they had a bar and all that good stuff. Oh yeah, the bar. It's a push-in bar. Nice like that. Yeah, as far as the bridge also, there are no adjustments for individual string height. You're going to have to do that using these posts like you would on a Floyd Rose. I don't mind. It doesn't bother me at all, but that is something to keep in mind. Oh, something I should also mention, if you look at these little knife edges here, I don't know if you can see them, it looks like they can be changed. Now, I don't know if anybody sells replacement knife edges for these bridges anymore. If anyone knows, leave me a comment below. But a nice touch, because those may potentially wear out. I haven't had any issues with mine so far, and I do use them quite a bit, and anyone that watches this channel knows I abuse my whammy bar like an idiot, so pretty good quality steel so far. Oh, speaking of which, whammy bar. It's just a push-in, which is really nice. This was stock on them out of the 80s. This is an aftermarket bar. This isn't the actual one. On the actual bars, they come with a little bit of a recessed channel cut into them. There's a little ball bearing in here that when you push it in, once you hit it, it'll make a nice little secure lock and it holds it in place. You can also adjust and tighten this for different, just for a different feel on where you want this bar to sit, whether you want it completely loose or if you want it tight. Which again is a really nice feature, especially considering that this guitar came out in like 85, right? But yeah, single locking trem, but it is amazing. These things stay in tune. You can abuse the absolute snot out of them. They perform a lot like a Floyd Rose would, an original Floyd Rose. Again, these are Schaller made, so are those. But yeah, I love the feel of this particular bridge. It feels fantastic to me, and yeah, you can do some pretty silly things in this, and I can even get it to flutter on occasion, just like a Floyd would, which is really weird considering single locking trem, right? But there you go. Set up properly, done well, it can work. All right, the neck. We should probably chit-chat about this. This is the real reason why I fell in love with this particular line of guitars out of Japan, this particular run of Fenders. This neck feels spectacular. This is probably my favorite neck ever. It's not too fat, it's not too slim, it's still shreddy. It feels just wonderful. One thing I will mention, of course, this is obviously painted black. All of the Fender Contemporary series has a painted black headstock, all of them. I don't know why, just a perk of the particular line, but there you go, they're all black. Fender calls this profile the D profile. I don't know what other guitars this came on, probably quite a few. If you know, leave me some comments below, but I love this profile. I'm sure the paint also adds a bit of thickness to it, which is maybe why I enjoy it so much. And I find it just has a particular feeling that my other Fenders don't. Those all don't have, you know, painted necks, but this one is just top shelf. Anyway, D profile, fantastic. Oh, and as you've probably already guessed, just from me waving this thing around like a maniac here, the neck radius itself is pretty flat by Fender standards. This is a 12-inch radius. I find this to be incredibly comfortable. It's not too flat, but just, it's like a Goldilocks zone. It's just right. It feels really, really nice to me, this 12-inch radius. Just really, really great. And of course, this is before, you know, the days of, you know, compound radius or any of that stuff. So this is just 12 all the way down. But you know what? Honestly, you don't need anything else. It's perfect. Great, great stuff. The scale length itself, of course, is your regular Fender 25.5 inches. These came with medium jumbo frets, I think. Yeah, medium jumbo frets. And, you know, you've got, obviously, 22 of them, which is pretty standard for the era. Obviously, we're looking at a rosewood fingerboard. Of course, this is all, you know, the 80s and pre-CITES or any issues with rosewood going on guitars. There's your logo there on these, which looks really nice. You can see this headstock's a little bit banged up because she's been played quite a bit. I'll tell you about these tuners. These tuners are pretty cool. I don't know if you can see these, if the light will get them. Yeah, there you go. They say Fender Japan on them. These are Fender Rotomatic tuners, but of course, made in Japan, Fujigen. Really nice tuners. They feel great. Not that it matters particularly, because again, once you get this lock nut locked, you're using the fine tuners down here, which feel amazing. These are, well, Schaller, right? They feel great. It feels like you're playing with something that's worth a considerable amount of money and was machined really well. So really, really nice. Oh, something I almost forgot to tell you about the neck. This is the early 80s, right? Like mid-early 80s, 84, 85-ish, 86, around there. So I guess mid-80s. That little hole right there? Yeah, that's right. This neck, micro tilt adjustment. So instead of taking the neck off to, you know, shim it or something, you can just loosen up the bolts and get in there and do a little micro adjustment, which is a really nice touch. Beautiful, beautiful guitar. Great features. But yeah, anyway, this is mine. This is kind of a wish guitar, so I'm really happy that I finally got my hands on it. I love this guitar to death. I will probably never part with this thing ever, just because it's something I was after for so long, and I just adore this neck. It is fantastic. It's just so comfortable, so comfortable. But anyway, yeah, that's it. That's my my candid review on this beautiful 1985-86 Fender Contemporary A-Series, not E-Series. Lovely, lovely guitar, extremely high quality, and just the sound and playability on it is fantastic. Great components, great everything. Wonderful guitars. If you come across one, please do pick it up, play it, see if you get on with this neck. You might have a hard time putting it down. Anyhow, hope you enjoyed the content. If you learned anything or found this useful, please make sure you give me a like and subscribe. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and play you guys out. Let's roll the clip.